Good afternoon and welcome to another video, the third that I've done of Commander deck building. I'm Kyle Krager and today we're going to be looking at my favorite Commander deck, Sharuum the Hegemon. This is a deck that I've had around for years now. It's the one that I never take apart and always sort of keep together just because I like it so much. It's constantly evolving and constantly changing. But right now I'd like to share with you the most recent version. So let's get started. We're going to take a look at the commander, and actually I think I prefer the original picture instead, so let's fix that. Alright, there, that's a little bit better. The Shards of Alara, Sharuum the Hegemon. She is a good commander in that she can return an artifact from your graveyard to play whenever you cast her. The fact that she can go to the command zone and let you use this ability repeatedly is pretty sweet. Now, you might notice that this is a white, blue, black deck, which typically signifies some sort of infinite combo or some kind of, awful shenanigans that could occur. This deck really doesn't have any of those. This is just a fun deck that I have together that's pretty competitive and a lot of fun to play. Alright, let's get started taking a look at the deck. So we're going to look at the creatures first. First we have Sphinx Summoner. He lets you search your deck for any artifact creature card and put it into your hand. Pretty good card. Then we have Aethersworn Adjudicator. He's a big flyer that can tap to destroy target creature or enchantment, and he has an effect that untaps him, but we have a lot of other cards that can untap him for less mana. And you'll get to see those later in the video. Alright, then we have Sharding Sphinx. This is a good card considering that we have a lot of evasion with all the flyers that we're running, and since most of our creatures are artifact creatures, they will be putting a blue Thopter artifact creature token into play. Not only that, but whenever the Thopter artifact creature tokens deal damage, they basically duplicate themselves, which is a very fun effect. Alright, now we have Steel Hellkite. This is a great card. Since it's just 6 colorless, it's very easy to cast in this deck. You can use its X ability for 0 to destroy any opposing tokens, or you can just use it to take out threats that are, potentially harmful to you. Alright, then we have Enigma Sphinx. This is a fun card. It does cost a lot, but the Cascade ability is a lot of fun. Card advantage is always good in Commander, and this card happened to be in our colors, and it's a big flyer, which is a plus. Now, you might be looking at this card and saying, Kyle, this card's awful. Oh no, it's so mean in Commander, and that's why I don't cast it a lot. So, I hope you really don't sound like that, but if you do, that's okay. So usually this card is cast when somebody's at like 300 life because they've resolved Beacon of Immortality like 5 times. This kind of knocks them down a peg and puts them back in a normal life range. Typically this card does not get searched out and it doesn't get cast unless things get really out of hand. Alright, now we have Sphinx of the Steel Wind. This is a big creature. It's pretty expensive, but at the same time, if it's in the graveyard, we can just pull it out with Sharuum, and it's got a lot of fun, nifty abilities. Alright, then we have Sphinx Ambassador. This isn't an artifact, but it is a great commander card. If you do actually connect with this, you can basically play Stump Your Opponent, because not everybody's going to know every single creature card that's in their deck. Unless you happen to be running against, that one guy who literally has 2 creatures in his entire deck. Otherwise, whoever you hit with this probably isn't going to be able to name what you picked. This card's a lot of fun. Alright, now we have Aethersworn Canonist. She's a great sort of utility artifact creature. And she, basically just stops everybody else and kind of helps stall the game while still letting you play whatever you want. So she's a lot of fun. Then we have Steel Overseer. He makes everybody bigger. And his effect is repeatable if we have the stuff that lets us untap everything, which, like I said, we'll get to see later. Then we have Master of Ethereum. He is the Artifact Lord, giving all artifacts +1/+1, with the exception of himself. And his power and toughness are equal to the number of artifacts we control, not just artifact creatures, so he can get pretty big. Alright, then we have Master Transmuter. This card is great. It has a wonderful effect, and once again, if we have stuff that lets us untap, we can play this card and use its ability multiple times. We have plenty of things in our deck that cost 0 or 1, so we can use the ability multiple times as long as we have the mana to keep paying for it. So she's a great 1-2 combo with big expensive artifacts and cheap things like Mox Opal and Soul Ring. Alright, then we have Wormcoil Engine. He's a cross-format staple. I've seen him run quite a bit in Standard, and he's found his way into my Commander deck. He's usually going to gain us some life. He's usually going to take a creature down with him, and he leaves 2 friends once he dies. This is a great card. Alright, so sometimes we need a little bit of early game stall with this deck, I've noticed, just so you don't get ran over and you can actually make it to the later turns. And Wall of Denial is a great defender card. We also have Wall of Reverence, another great defender card. This card will keep you alive long enough to be able to actually cast some of your bigger spells, and it'll gain you some life in the process. So now we're going to look at some removal. Usually I don't like spot removal, but this deck does not have a lot of access to destroy or remove target artifact or enchantment, so I figure why not one revoke its existence isn't going to hurt too much. Alright, then we have some mass removal. Scourglass is great. Basically, if this thing does actually resolve, you are going to be coming out on top because you have a lot more artifacts than everybody else, and most of your stuff will not die. Then we have Planar Cleansing. This is a great board wipe, and it's good to note that this card also takes care of Planeswalkers, which is pretty sweet. Alright, then we have Phyrexian Rebirth. This is a great Wrath effect. The fact that it puts a artifact creature onto the battlefield once it resolves is pretty cool, seeing as your deck loves artifacts. Alright, then we have some targeted removal. Normally, I don't like to run targeted creature removal either, but this deck likes a couple options, so Dispatch is a great one. 9 times out of 10 you will have the Metalcraft when you have this card in your hand, so whatever you cast it on is going to get removed. And it's basically a second copy of this card. Sword Splashairs, great spot removal. It gets rid of big creatures and keeps them gone, which is nice. Same thing with Oblivion Ring. It can get rid of planeswalkers, enchantments, artifacts, creatures, you name it. This card can get rid of it. So Oblivion Ring is a sweet one. Now we're running black, so of course we're running some tutors. I know Demonic Tutor is kind of expensive, but at the same time I was lucky to buy the Divine versus Demonic dual deck when it came out, so I'm running that copy in here. If you do not have access to this card, you could replace it with one of the less expensive tutors, like Increasing Ambition that just came out. We also have Diabolic Tutor. This is a great card, really easy to pick up, and it's just a more expensive mana-wise card than Demonic Tutor. Then we have some artifact-specific search. We have Trinket Mage. He has a ton of targets in this deck. He has all the tiny, people call them mana rocks, things like Soul Ring. I have one of the Mox Opals, Everflowing Chalice. It's also important to note that he can search out the artifact lands that we're running. We're running one of each color, and of course Darksteel Citadel. So he's a great utility card. Then we have Treasure Mage. Treasure Mage basically lets you get out all of your big fatties. I think I counted earlier, and he has either 6 or 7 targets. It might even be 8 if somehow Sharuum got shuffled into the deck. But he's a great card, and he lets us get some important things. All right, then we have Fabricate. Search for an artifact, reveal it, put it in your hand. Pretty good. It's important to note that I like using this as sort of mana ramp, mana fixing early, and then in the late game I'll use it to find bombs. So, Acquire is great. You can search your opponent's library for an artifact, put it into play. You're usually gonna hit something sweet. You might hit a Soul Ring. You might, if it's early and you need mana fixing, or you could get anything like a Chroma's Memorial. You might find a Blightsteel Colossus, or you could use it to go find something like, I don't know, Luxodon if you wanted to gain some life. It's usually pretty good considering that most people run some sweet artifacts in their commander decks. Right now we're going to look at some more graveyard recursion. Since Sharuum's the commander, we have sort of a small bit of that in the deck. Skeleton Shard is great. You can get back artifact creature cards from your graveyard to your hand pretty readily. So this is a great card. Lets you reuse all those enter the battlefield effects. Then we have Sanctum Gargoyle. Same thing, but it's on a body instead of on a stick. Then we have Argivarian Restoration. This is basically Sharuum's effect in sorcery form. This is really good in case you have to discard one of your sweet artifact cards. You can just pull it back for the low price of 4 mana. Alright, then we have Beacon of Unrest. Gets back creatures and artifacts, and shuffles back into your deck to do it again. This is a great card if you're running black. Now we're going to look at some card draw. I've got Ponder. Normally I don't like running the low-cost cantrip cards, just because they're basically replacing themselves. But this deck sometimes does have a little bit of trouble in the early game fixing its mana, and Ponder is a good one to make sure that if you need some land, you can check the top 3, see if you've got some coming. Otherwise, you can shuffle them away and hope to draw. So this is a good card. Then we have Ancestral Vision. This will let you draw 3 cards, and the suspend isn't that bad since it only costs 1. It's great to play early and then resolve around turn 4 or 5. Alright, then we have Thirst for Knowledge. Since we're running artifacts, this is an obvious inclusion. Rhystic Study is great if you're running blue. Most of the time your opponent will not pay 1, just because most people like to maximize their mana usage and use everything every turn. Alright, then we have 4C. This lets you see quite a bit of your deck for not a lot of mana. The Scryflor is great, and then it actually replaces itself and gives you another card, so this is a great card to have. Tezzeret's Gambit's good as well. The 2 cards are sweet. The Proliferate's even sweeter. We have a lot of stuff that benefits from having additional counters. We have a few Planeswalkers. We have some artifacts that are nice to pump the counters up. Also, if you've got your Steel Overseer out, you can give everybody some more +1/+1 counters. So this is a fun card. Then we have the Mac Daddy of card draw, Consecrated Sphinx. If you're playing in a commander game with more than 2 people, then you're going to be drawing quite a few cards every turn with Consecrated Sphinx. This effect can really add up, and it's nice to note that you can copy them with some of the clone effects for absurd card drawing. Alright, then I've got a single Take an Extra Turn card. I like Time Warp because it's not super abusable in this deck. Sometimes it's just nice to take an extra turn, but with this deck you don't take, infinity extra turns, which is really nice. Alright, now we're going to look at some of the artifact mana fixing. I've got a Mox Diamond. I was fortunate enough to pull it out of the From the Vault's Relics when I bought that, and it immediately went in this deck. It is good mana fixing. If you don't have a Mox Diamond, then I would recommend something like Obelisk of Esper, or something like Coalition Relic. Then we have Vox Opal. This is another good one. Like I said, 9 times out of 10 you're going to have the Metalcraft, so it's going to be active. And it's important to note that this is one of the cards that combos quite well with Master Transmuter. You can constantly bounce this to play other big artifacts. Alright, then we have Soul Ring, Commander staple. If you don't have one, you should get one. And Ever Flowing Chalice. You can usually kick this thing quite a few times. I try to do it 3 or 4 times just to get the most value. And another thing that's nice about this card is, with all of the untap effects you're about to see, you can make quite a bit of mana with this. It's important to note that the last 4 cards that we looked at, the Mox Diamond, the Mox Opal, the Soul Ring, and the Overflowing Chalice, all cost less than 1, or 1 or less rather, and can be searched up with Trinket Mage, so that's pretty good. Then we have a great colorless mana ramp card, Solemn Simulacrum. Ramps you up a basic land and draws you a card when he dies, very good. Galactic Key starts us out with the untapping cards that we have. Then we have Unbender Tine, which is nice because not only does it untap artifacts, but it untaps any target permanent. You could even do some politics with this card and help your opponent out and untap one of their sweet cards. As long as they're not going to use it against you, of course. Clock of Omens is a really great card. I wasn't actually playing when 5th Dawn came out, so this is a recent addition to the deck. I saw it in the Magic 2013 spoiler and thought, hey, I should put this in Sharuum. This card's great. It's good to note that you can tap all of your artifacts that don't normally tap, like the clock itself. You can tap your Gauntlet of Power and your Caged Sun, and you can untap your equipment to untap other artifacts. Alright, then we have Unwinding Clock. This is the best untapping card in the deck. It's basically a Seedborn Muse for your artifacts, letting you untap all of them during each player's turn, and letting you do some fun things with the activated effects of your cards. Then we have Lux Cannon. This is one of those fun cards to tap and untap. It's nice that it actually destroys any permanent, so that's good to keep in mind. Alright, then we have Gauntlet of Power. I usually call blue just because I have more islands in the deck, but depending on who you're playing with, you may actually want to call black or white if there's a heavy blue presence around your table. Same thing with Caged Suns. It's important to note that Caged Sun is only going to benefit you and not everybody. Alright, normally I don't jam a lot of counters into commander decks just because they're usually one time and done. But this deck does like to have a couple counters in it, so I have a few here. I've got Counterspell, I've got Pact of Negation, I've got Cryptic Command, and I've got Glen Alindra Archmage. She's great because she can counter Planeswalkers as well as instants and sorceries. I know these two are pretty expensive, and I know she's creeping up there as well. You can always run Dissipate, Cancel. You don't have to run the crazy expensive counter spells if that's what you're looking for. Then we're going to look at the copy effects. So there's Clone. Copies a creature, pretty good. Copy one of your own, copy one of your opponents, doesn't matter, good card. Then we have Sculpting Steel, copy one of your artifacts. This is a great card. Then we have the combination of the two, Phyrexian Metamorph, copy an artifact or a creature, and go to town. Alright, and now we have some Planeswalkers. So if you're running artifacts, you should be running Tezzeret. He sort of helps with the untap theme. It's also important to note that he kind of works like Garruk. If you have the artifact lands out, he can untap 2 target lands. Or you can use his X ability for 0 to basically mana excel, getting out either one of the 2 Moxen that we have or one of the artifact lands for 0. Then we have Tezzeret, Agent of Bolas. He basically lets you dig for artifacts. Usually his +1's going to hit. It's also important to note that you can kill somebody with his -4 if you have enough artifacts on the field. Alright, then we have Baby Jace, Jace Beleren. I usually use him to let everybody draw a card. That way people don't hate on him and kill him. And then I was fortunate enough to pull one of these out of a pack of Worldwake, so I figure, hey, why not? Jace the Mind Sculptor. He's pretty good in this deck. He's a lot better in a 1v1 match, but he's still fun to play. Since I have one, I figure why not? I'll put it in my favorite commander deck. If you don't have one, he's really easy to replace. You can either replace him with the new Jace from Return to Ravnica, or you could even replace him with the 5-cost Jace from the core sets. Alright, then we have Darksteel Forge. This thing is an all-star in our deck because it makes all of our artifacts indestructible. This is a great card. 2 pieces of equipment round out the non-land part of the list. Lightning Greaves is a format staple, so is Whisper Silk Cloak. Alright, now we're going to look at the mana base really quickly. We have Command Tower, auto-include. Arcane Sanctum, good for Esper colors. We have Drowned Catacombs, Isolated Chapel, and Glacial Fortress, all 3 of the sweet dual lands. Then we have Dark Slick Shores and Seachrome Coast from Scars of Mirrodin. Then we have one of each one of the artifact lands. Ancient Den, the white one, Seat of the Synod, the blue one, and Vault of Whispers, the black one. And then we have Darksteel Citadel, which is the 4th artifact land that we can run. I'm running Caves of Koleos just because I needed mana fixing for white and black, since they're the 2 lowest represented colors in the deck. You could run one of the Shadowmoor block filter lands instead. I like Celestial Colonnade. He's a good blocker and he mana fixes. Then we have Academy Ruins for recursion. Buried Ruin for recursion, and Reliquary Tower for when we get insane amounts of card draw and need to not be discarding them at the end of every turn. Finally, we have Evolving Wilds, and its functionally similar card, Terramorphic Expanse. They both help you mana fix. And finally, I'm running 6 islands, 5 plains, and 4 swamps. So that sort of wraps it up. This deck's a lot of fun. It does have a lot of really neat interactions, and it's great to play one-on-one or in a multiplayer setting. I tried to sort of, maybe make some suggestions for some of the cards that are a little bit more expensive and some more budget ways that you could potentially build the deck. I hope you've really enjoyed this. If you did, please like the video and subscribe, and definitely comment if you have any questions. And thanks for watching. And that was Sharuum the Hegemon. See you next time.